He started his greenkeeping career under the guidance of the legendary Walter Woods at St Andrews and spent 8 years in Germany before joining Mark Parsonen to construct Kingsbarns. This was a truly revolutionary project to create a running game linksy course out of fertile farmland. I played it again recently, and it's a visually special place, successfully focused on the overseas tourist market, closed for 5 months in the year, and with every other Tuesday during the playing season reserved for course maintenance. Together with the St Andrews Old Course and Carnoustie, it hosts the Alfred Dunhill Links tournament each autumn, and with a green fee approaching £200, it is still able to attract in 7 months 25,000 rounds per annum. In 2006, Stuart agreed to help Mark Parsonen, who is sorry he can't be here today, but sends his best wishes for a lively discussion. He was in touch with me and asked me to pass that on. Created Castle Stuart, of which Stuart is now general manager. Conceived to be as Turnberry is for Ayrshire and Glen Eagles is for Perthshire, except that Castle Stuart is 100% gorgeous fescue grass, unlike the other two. Castle Stuart, in attracting the Scottish Open back to a running game course, has done an enormous favour to the game of golf. I'd like to think that these two projects, Kingsbarns and Castle Stuart, have helped show that it is now easier to attract money to build courses for the modern retro trend back to the running game than the target-style conurbation courses that were all the rage in the 1980s and 90s. Can I introduce Stuart McColm?
Thanks very much, Lauren. Malcolm, Martin. Thanks for asking me down. I grew up on the links at Nairn Golf Club with my father, who was a very illustrious golfer, runner-up to George Will at the Scottish Boys at St Andrews. He was a +4 handicap out of Cooper, and he worked at Otterlonies for a while before giving up the professional game in the 50s. There wasn't enough money in it. So with that, I got introduced to the running game up at Nairn. And marvellous it was, and my son now does exactly the same thing, 13 years old and round the links at 10 handicap, so a nice tussle on a Sunday morning. But it was really, carving out a career at St Andrews, as Lauren had mentioned, with Walter Woods and Jim Arthur, the consultant at the time. That's when I really understood the fundamentals of the running game. Fine fescues and bents, low fertility, low water. And luck would have it, I ended up taking a career move, as Lauren said, over into more contracts management and construction of golf courses in Germany. But again, most of those 90s, the 1990s, those courses were predominantly being built with the creeping bents for greens and tees, and predominantly rye and poor pretenses fairways. So you can imagine handing over to, farmers who were used to and practicing the art of high NPK, high watering, and high fungicides. It wasn't a place that I was getting a lot of, chance to sort of take the running game to there. So there it was. In 1997, I was with Southern Golf at the time, constructing out there. We were awarded the contract as a company to build Kingsbarns golf links, and I just had to be there. Simple as. I made sure I got there, teamed up with Walter again, and a group of people there with the visionary Mark Parson, who is quite the most incredible guy. The detail that he imbues on a project is second to none. But they were all intent, as a team there, on producing a spectacular links with the fine grasses and promoting the running game. Now, Mark being Mark, did a lot of market research on the 18th green at St Andrews, And he was led to believe from that US visitors really did demand sea views on links, which isn't often the case when you really think about it. Think of our trophy courses and Carnoustie, Troon, Muirfield and Birkdale, for example. They don't really offer up the views that, for example, Turnberry might. And Turnberry is a US visitor's favourite. We know that. So, a high-end, pure visitor business model that was laughed off by many in its inception in St Andrews. But let's face it now, Kingsbarns is probably one of the biggest success stories in modern times in golf, certainly in this country. And I think as well that it was probably a precursor to many similar worldwide developments. Think Bandon Dunes, Pacific Dunes, Cape Kidnappers, Barnbougle Dunes, Lost Farm, Diamante in Mexico, Oitavos Dunes in Portugal, Macrahannis Dunes, Dundonald, Chambers Bay. All fescue-based with high-end visitor courses, with Chambers Bay obviously being announced as venue for the US Open in 2015. Bold move by the USGA? Who knows? Wonder what the R&A are thinking. Sustainability. I know that Chris Haspel and his team up at Castle Stuart at the moment are proving that responsible development can be sensitive to the environment, and as far as Castle Stuart is concerned, obviously Mark, coming back onto that, Mark really wasn't content with the links turf and the spectacular views that we were so privileged to get at Kingsbarns. He wanted to take the design philosophy a stage further. So, at that time, when we found the site at Castle Stuart, we debated a lot of things. First of all, made mention earlier, caddies. What are caddies? For us, we think they're there to snag a poor shot. So we did away with caddies. We decided that at Castle Stuart, we didn't want to have caddies. We think it's not in the spirit of the game when you're trying to level the playing field between the sort of high handicapper and the scratch player. We also debated wide fairways, offering different angles of attack to different pins, and not the typical through the goalpost golf, as we like to call it. We debated bunkers, primarily the use of greenside bunkers. Too many, and it basically gave off purely the aerial shot. Played into the hands of the low handicapper again, because clearly it was one-dimensional. And we'll debate the bunkers issue later on if we may, but we'll come back to that one. Furthermore, a high handicapper quickly became disengaged by going into a greenside bunker as well. So, with that in mind, we landed on asymmetry, where typically there's always a bailout area, and thus an ability to recover. The game shouldn't be difficult for the sake of being difficult. It should be fun and engaging for all levels. Pure fescue and sand was what we decided on as a mix. A difficult marriage, for sure. Early growing pains, for sure. But yet, fantastic putting services year-round. So, I've taken the jump from course and contracts manager to now general manager. But I've learned that having the in-depth knowledge of the product, from agronomy to design, and having the mantra that as a team, we're golfers looking after golfers, we're able to communicate at all levels to the visiting golfer, and once again, seeing that communication is the key to success.